Man, Russ, what's really going on, man?
It's time to go live and share our passive income report for July of 2024. That's what's going
Why
on,
are we
bro.
so excited right now? Why was that just fist pump in the air?
Because you're kind of goofy and you kind of do stuff like that. But I don't know. Why are you excited? I think it's always fun to share what we're doing because we know ultimately it inspires other people to accomplish even higher heights. I think that's exciting. You and I definitely don't do this because of our own stuff. It's only how does this help you and how does this help you um, tell someone else and share with someone else. And I mean, we started doing this passive income report in July of 2020, 4 years ago. And it's just ultimately just this constant learning lesson, something that builds and builds and builds. So if you're joining us live, we are excited to share some numbers with you in a second. We're going to focus specifically on a question actually we were attending APEC Coaching's live event, the Inner Circle Live in Nashville, and somebody asked us a question, and so we thought, hey, let's take it and let's share about that so that others can learn from it. So Joey, we need to
That's
record
what gets me fired up, by the way.
Yeah, we need to record a podcast here. So for all of those watching live or going back and watching the recording, we're about to do a podcast. It's something we do every single month. This is the only one that we do live. So no messing up, Joey.
By the way, if you've never joined us for one of these, go to our website, wealth.wallstreet.com, and you can scroll all the way to the bottom. There's actually a tab for all of our passive income reports that we've done in the last 4 years. So,
or you could go to wealth.wallstreet.com/passive-income, and you don't even have to do all the scrolling.
I mean, do what you want. I'm just telling you, there's two ways to get there, and if this is something you like, you get more of what you like.
Yeah,
so let's do
it. If you like speed, you're gonna do it my way. Oh man! All right, let's do this.
We ready to start the intro?
Let's do it. Hey, Joey, when we were in Nashville attending the Inner Circle Live with about 125, 130 other excited entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs wanting to know how do we build more passive income than we have monthly expenses, one of them came up to you and I and they said, guys, I've been following you for years and I don't know if you know this, but you have a talent. And I thought, who, me? Like, I know you're not talking about Joey. Like, what are we talking about here? Talent? What is that? And they said, no, in all seriousness, you guys have some gift that I think you take for granted, which is you know how to build passive income by installing operators and businesses. You guys are great at either starting or buying businesses and putting in fantastic operators. There must be some secret sauce. There must be something that you're doing that we don't know how to do. Would you be open to share it? I was like, Joey, I mean, seriously, like we share everything. Why would we not share this?
Absolutely. And you know what gets me fired up about that question is it started to really the dominoes in my head to think this is potentially one of those skills that Russ and I haven't even considered is if you could figure this out. Like if you could understand the behind the scenes on how this actually happens, you could unlock a way to 5 to maybe even 10x your ability to create passive income. I mean, think about that for a second. If your goal is to get to financial freedom as fast as possible, let's unlock this for people. Like that's what gets me fired up about today.
So if you want to figure out how to, in Joey's terms, 5 or 10x your passive income approach through this one unique strategy, that's why you need to come back right after this break. All right. Feel like an ESPN announcer. Man, you cannot miss the catch that was made right after the break. I love it. So good. All right.
We just don't have the real cool outro music and intro music. We got to add that.
We need to have like our little sayings that, you know, I've already forgotten them because I don't have watched ESPN in years. All right. You got our passive income report. You ready to share?
Okay.
Stay focused.
Okay. Sorry. I have it ready to go and I'm going to pull it up right now.
Thank you.
Oop, not video file. Hold on. How's that look?
It looks small on my screen, but also I have it up big on another screen, so that's good. All right,
Well,
let's.
if I increase it, you're going to have some stuff cut off. Is that
It's okay. Yeah, I would make it bigger.
okay?
It's don't worry about showing the whole thing. Just make it bigger.
Okay.
And we can scroll. You can scroll. If you can't see it, it doesn't matter.
Ah, good idea.
Okay.
All
All right,
right, you
let's
ready?
go. Yeah. Stallion, one of our friends, Sharon Srivatsa, says the number one way to growing your wealth is by owning and operating business. And I've seen this true not only personally, but also with friends, where most people, and when they're investing, they're thinking in terms of rate of return. Where when we build businesses, we don't think rate of return, we think multiples of what we invest, right? We think about how can we grow our investment 2, 3, 10x, as you said, as we open this. And I think there's a secret sauce to doing that. Would you like to share exactly what it is?
I would, but before we do, I want to add one more quick little intro of one of the members of our masterminds was at the same event that we were just talking about at Apex Inner Circle Live, which, by the way, if you haven't been to one of those, you need to go right now to apexcoachinggroup.com/ICL for Inner Circle Live and make sure you're on the list to get into the next one. We typically have a limit and you don't want to miss out on this. But our mastermind member was telling me, he said, you know what? I already have an operating business. Like my wife and I are in the space where she's an artist. She does books and things of this nature. But what he realized is he's like, there's a need for me to build another business that actually we're not the operators, that we're not the key employees in the business because the business we have is great, but it's not saleable. And he said, why wouldn't I create a business that gives me cash flow today and the ability to have a multiple on the back end? And that's what got him really fired up about the Amazon space. So, anyways, just sharing again, another reason why we need to be talking about this topic today is finding the right operator is critical to getting more benefit from the time and energy and money that you're going to put into this.
Okay, Tribe. I'm going to go right to the point here. I said there was secret sauce. Joey gave you a heartwarming story. Thank you, Joey, for taking us down that road. I'm definitely interested in that. But if you're looking to 7 or 10x your passive income approach, potentially, right? Like this isn't for everybody. There is a strategy that we've been using. And we know that our investor DNA, our investor buy box will dictate exactly what we do. So if you have this profile, if your investor DNA says that you love establishing businesses, being a part and being involved in them, that's probably your D and I profiles more than any, then you're going to say this resonates. If you're an S or C, maybe you're the ones who would be an operator for these businesses and have other people invest in you. So I think there's a dual-edged sword here. So there's 3 elements I think that help us identify the secret sauce. One is that we don't try to make this up on our own. We understand what makes up an operator in the strategy, and we're going to talk about how we go and get that data. Secondly, we talk about how do we seek out candidates who fit that exact profile, right? We're not guessing. We're actually going to use diagnostic tools that's going to give us the exact inputs we need so that we know every single time before we even start the search who our person is and if they meet it. Otherwise, no phone calls, no meetings. Let's don't waste anybody's time. Let's get to the point. And third, how do we build this out so it's a win-win, right? Because if you're an owner and you have an operator in the business, we need to make sure that everybody's invested in the end game. Everybody has the same goals. Everybody's pulling. We don't have one person in the wagon, another one getting pulled behind it. We need everybody making sure that we're getting closer to success. And that's by building a win-win. All right, Sonny, let's talk about the first one. Roles and responsibilities of being an operator in a strategy. How do you determine, right? No matter what we're talking about, if we're looking at our passive income report right now, there's lots of different ways that we are building businesses and have operators in them. First and foremost, maybe give me an example. Tell me about how we actually determine who would be a good operator for that space.
Great question. And I would point to our short-term rental business, wakeupinbirmingham.com, that we built in 2020. And what we did is we got really interested in the topic. We said, man, this seems like a strategy we need to be doing. But we both knew we neither one of us could be the operator. So we started to think, what are the roles and responsibilities of somebody that would be really good at this? And we did that by going to an expert, right? We went to, in this case, a gentleman who teaches the short-term rental arbitrage classes and has a course and all that. And we knew he was going to be the one to train the person that we were going to have as an operator. So I think that's critical. If you don't know about exactly what those roles and responsibilities are, go to somebody who's already been there, already done that, built the same business as you're trying to build, and they could literally outline for you, this person's going to have to do this day to day. They're going to have to take on this responsibility. And that will then give you, oh, wait a minute. There may be somebody that I know of, or some, let's say, another type of career choice that that person has done that may mirror those responsibilities.
Hey,
That's what I say. You got to go to the expert to figure that out.
well, we interviewed Alex and Layla Hormozy, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even longer, before really a lot of people knew even who they were, right? If you're on Instagram, you probably see Alex. He's a pretty uh, easy figure because of how big he is to notice. But he's a really brilliant guy. And I remember when he was telling us how he was launching his business in the gym space, he's like, I just took the expertise I had being a defense contractor, someone who was like trying to figure out what I needed to do in each space. I would just go ask, who's the top people in this space? Give me a list of 3 to 5 people. Then I would go interview them and say, what is it makes you excellent in what you do? He would just gain the insight of the industry. And he said, after about 3 or 4 meetings, you knew exactly what they possessed so that you knew who to use. But also, if you were trying to get into that space, you would know exactly the things you needed to gain knowledge in. So to your point, it was easy for us because we ran a podcast to know who the experts were. We had interviewed enough people to say, this person was an expert. This is the person who had exactly the training. I think so many times people are so short-sighted that they won't spend the money on the investment of learning the skill, right? They say, well, I'll just hack
Good
it.
point.
I'll just try to do it. So one of the things is find who your experts are. There's easy ways to do that, as we just said. Secondly, spend the money. Spend the money to learn the skill, learn how to do it. And you as an owner should also go through that training. Because if you don't know it, you won't know what to inspect. So if we're sitting here talking about how do we build passive income for us, what is our number one way is we go out and we buy businesses or build businesses, and then we install operators, right? This month, we're sitting here in July of 2020. We brought in a net $55,000 a month for the month of July, right? So I think, hey, why do we have authority to speak on this? Well, we've been doing this for 4 years, and constantly and consistently, we're over $50,000 a month in passive income. And one of the ways that we've done is by building businesses. So when you find who the experts are in the space, you do the training and the expertise so that you have the ability to understand, are they doing the job well? And you might even be able to give tweaks and help improve it. Because there are risks, right, Stallion? There are risks whenever you put operators in the business if you don't have the skill. What would that
That's
risk
right.
be?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to give one more quick example. We've had a podcast recently on the vending space, getting into micro markets and creating those in different places. Well, what did Russ and I do? We said, man, this is a great idea. I think I like this space. I'd love to learn more. And so what did we do? We went out and we bought the program. We bought from Mike Hoffman's group directly, Vendingpreneurs. You can actually learn more at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/vending. And we bought his course so that we could learn about it. And now we're literally taking appointments in person at some locations around our city to figure out exactly what it would take to install an operator to run those. So we're learning what are those possible hangups? What are they? How do they need to be prepared to go into a meeting with a property manager at an apartment complex or at a fitness gym or wherever it may be that we're going to place these? But this is how we're investing in the process by buying the course, getting a coach, and then taking the next steps personally to make sure we can then pass that on to somebody else.
Which,
So it's
but
just another example I want to
well,
share.
what that does though for us, it reduces single point of failure. Too
100%.
oftentimes, every business has one person that's so key to the business. In the event that they don't show up, they go on vacation, they get sick, they get injured, they die, they leave the company, whatever it is, the business fails or has a potential to fail. We can't have that. If we're going to run a true business, we need to be able to have multiple contingency plans. So we can't have one person having all the knowledge. Reason why us as owners cannot possess all the knowledge. There's been plenty of companies over the past. There was a grocery franchise that was here in our local area. There was 3 or 4 brothers that ran that grocery franchise. They were all in one plane. That plane went down. That humongous grocery store business no longer exists as a result. They possess all the intellectual capital. So we cannot have single points of failure in the business. So if you're going to establish a business to put an expert in there, they can't be the only person. You have to gain knowledge, and there needs to be systems that anyone else could come in and take over so that you don't do that. Well, here's one of the keys, though, Stallion, that we need to talk about is, all right, well, I know I need to find out the experts and what they, what their roles and responsibility are. I need to do in the training myself so I understand the capacity of what is needed. But then I build out a profile that shows exactly who's going to have success. And in our investing, we call that the investor DNA. But there's lots of tools, right, that we can use this for. Some people love using DISC. Some people love using the Colby Index. One of the things that you and I use a lot is a tool called the Culture Index. We had a guy named Matt White come on the podcast years and years ago. He talked about the different ways that we see the world. Are we autonomous, or do we love to be a team on a team? Do we like to talk out loud, or do we like to be very introverted in our thought process? How fast do we want to go, and how much need for follow through and a willingness to follow a process do we have? All of these things make up the expert in the space that you're in. Everybody has an opportunity to have success in what they already possess. Let's don't try to, turn dogs into racehorses, right? Let's don't try to make somebody what they're not. Let's help people win in the area of success. So we never.
Well,
I'm
and
sorry.
I was just going to add to that, Russ. Here's the thing: the reason why we use an outside tool is because our gut instinct is usually very much biased towards the person that we are like, because we like ourselves, right? We want more people around us like ourselves. But guess what? We aren't necessarily the best operator for the business that we're trying to hire. Or the second thing we do is we're biased towards somebody that we already know and like as a person. Maybe it's a family member. Those things get you into trouble, because just because that person is likable or known by you doesn't mean they have the skill set, the roles and responsibilities that are going to make them successful in that business. I mean, just recently, we talked to a friend of ours who is leaving a business after only 6 months with it. And guess what? From day one, if we looked at his profile, we could have told you he would have never been a good fit for the role he was hired for. And it was because of his profile, exactly what we just talked about.
Yeah, that assessment was not done. So that's what creates failure, is that one, you don't reach out to the experts to understand what an expert in the business would look like, creating a profile that would mirror it, getting the training yourself so that you're not just handing it off to others, because you just can't. I mean, as much as you want this for your spouse, for your kid, for your sibling, for your best friend, as much as you want it for them, and you say, hey, I got money and I'm just going to invest in them. If they don't want it and they're not the right profile, it will never work. They have to want it as much as you do. All right. So that's step number one. Step number two is then, how do we find these people, Stallion? Like, is there just this magic tree of where these amazing operators who meet this profile exist?
No, that is not possible. But I'm going to give you some credit here, Russ, because in the past you've made it. You've told people, hey, instead of telling people like, hey, I'm an accountant, or I'm a school teacher, or I'm an attorney, or whatever, when people ask you what you do, if you lead off by saying I'm an investor, it's amazing that people will try to find things that will meet that criteria for you. So for instance, this applies when it talks about finding the right candidates to run an operating business that you're installing. And you have to not necessarily go to the person and say, hey, do you want to go work for me in this job? The best way to do it is to tell that person, hey, who do you know that meets this criteria that may be looking for a better opportunity? So instead of me saying, hey, Russ, would you like to come work for me in this vending machine business that I'm starting? You say, hey, listen, I'm starting a vending machine business and I'm looking for somebody who really loves to operate a business on their own time. They don't want to have to clock in, clock out from a 9 to 5. In fact, they want to have the autonomy to be able to do it at 5 a.m. if it meets their criteria of when they're available. Or maybe it's at 10 p.m. when they are finally off of another job or whatever it may be. The pay is well, and they actually get additional benefits that down the road we may even be able to share in some equity in the business. Who do you know that fits that criteria? As soon as you dog whistle, that's a term in the marketing world, like you tell people what you're looking for by explaining the character, you people will start to solve the problem for you. And that means in your social circles, that means mouth, face to face, that means on any, if you have an audience of any sort, that's how you start to get the word out. What would you add to that, Russ?
Well, I mean, we all have social media, and there's an opportunity for us to reach at minimum 60,000 people with any given post if the post is of value, meaning that we have 250 quote unquote friends on Facebook who has 250 quote unquote friends on Facebook, right? So if you shared it with 250 people that would share it with 250 people, you're reaching what is like 60 grand, 60,000 people. Well, what is it's going to make this interesting is that you're sharing what the win is for the person doing it. Joey started talking about this. Who do you know who looks like this, who would like these sort of upsides? And depending on the thing that you're doing. So Joey and I, if we're looking at our passive income report, we have a land flipping business that we created, that we established, had operators put in it. We had a short-term rental business that we continue to get paid from, even long after we've sold it because we owner finance the business. We're involved in a candle business, right? Like it can go on and on. Like we've had so many different businesses, your Turo business, right? There's so many operators that we've come across and built businesses around them, in addition to our information space and affiliate marketing and all these different areas. Well, whenever you are sharing an opportunity with someone, you're also giving them hopefully an opportunity to win too. This isn't about ownership, employee status. Like every time I go into this, and this leads us into point number 3, is how do we make this a win-win? I want to understand how to give a person, any person who's working with us, an unlimited upside. Because think about this. Like, isn't that probably one of the reasons you're listening to this podcast right now? You're sick of the glass ceiling. You're like, man, there's got to be something better. I'm tired of being the fish inside the fishbowl and not know I'm swimming in water, right? Like I literally want to get outside. I want to be able to have way more freedom with my time, with my location. There's got to be opportunities. Well, everyone has that same need. So how can we build this? So if we're looking, if you're that establisher profile, you love getting involved and engaged, you're probably decent with people. You can share a message concisely, and you can start talking about what makes this a win-win. Think about to the short-term rental business, Joey. One of the things that we did immediately is say, hey, not only do we need to figure out what your income needs are and how do we solve those needs, but also how do we help you learn this so that you can start doing this on your own too. So you can do this for our business, but then there's nothing that prevents you from doing this on your own. Don't you want passive income? Don't you want to start doing this? Of course I do. And what did they do? They started finding other investors who wanted to invest in their deal so that they could operate and make money for themselves in that. And ultimately got to the point where they were like, hey, what would it look like if I were to buy the business from you? Because they had everything they needed at that point. It became a win-win.
That's right. And I think the real big learning here in this particular point is don't assume what people need or what gets people excited, right? You may be very driven by money, But somebody else that would be operating your business might be more driven by consistency and steadiness and a known outcome. Like you may be like, hey, I'd love to just be all in for as much equity as I can get. I don't care about monthly income. I want to know that I have an exit 3 years from now or 5 years from now. Well, the next person may want nothing to do with an exit and all about just monthly cash flow for them to take care of their family. I think you have to consider that you're designing the role not in terms of the roles and responsibilities, but in terms of how that person is going to win alongside you. And you obviously you have to have parameters around it. It has to make good financial sense for the business. But there's a lot of levers that you can pull and push to make sure that it's a win-win.
Well, here's a very specific one. If you are tired of the fluff sometimes we give you and you want a very specific how to do it, one of the most common tools we use is a draw. If you're not familiar with the draw, a lot of us who've been in sales of some sort have had a draw for the company. I mean, we went into a role that meant we were going to have a production, and that production requirement would give us certain income. Well, a draw could be with your operator is, hey, maybe your income needs are higher than what the business can serve right now. But as you scale the business, as you have success in the business, you can start meeting and exceeding what those income requirements are. Well, what if we created a floor, a draw, which allows us to say, let's just pay you $5,000 a month on a draw. And the way that I'm going to compensate you is say 10% of all the production in the company, whatever it is. I'm just making up numbers here. And let's just say for the first month, they only produced $10,000. So they only got paid at 10% of that's $1,000. But they had a floor of 5,000. The next month it went up to 20. So they created 2,000. Well, we paid them 5,000, right? So if you see the draw, the first month they were negative 4,000. The second month they were negative 3,000. Well, they start slowly scaling, and then by month 8, now they're producing 100,000. And now they're getting $10,000 of that. Well, then they start paying back the negative balance they get to the point where they're even, and then they start to participate fully in whatever the percentage is that you've built for them. Well, that's a model that creates stability for the person, probably leaving a company, leaving a business that they're already in to come work with you. And that's the risk most people have. People are like, how am I going to convince somebody to take this step? The right person, how am I going to get them to leave something that they're already doing well in to come work with us? Well, you have to create stability, but also you need to create an upside that's far exceeding what they're currently enjoying right now. And if you can't do that, it's not a good opportunity, right? You need to build a better opportunity. If you're looking at our passive income report right now, you see that we've created a number of different passive income streams. And one of the old sayings is passive income doesn't mean uninvolved. And people ask that question all the time. Hey, I just want the easy mailbox money. I just want to put money in and get money out. And if that's you, that's cool, right? There's opportunities, things that we've invested in that's on the sheet. Stallion, what are some of the items that we've invested in, right? We don't have a per se operator that we're managing, that we just get a check from.
So I would say the Bitcoin mining fund is something. There's just a standardized syndication that's been built in there. You get into the Tribe Vest. That's just a loan that was actually created from that entity and that operator. We have things like multifamily syndication, a mobile home park, oil and gas fund. Those are the things that just have a known syndication built in where you're receiving cash flow for your initial investment.
Yeah. So those are quote unquote easy button items, right? Now, I would argue that there's nothing completely uninvolved. Like you have to manage those syndicators, you have to manage those operators, and the fact that you're asking questions on the front end, you're doing due diligence to make sure that what they told you on their pretty spreadsheets and pitch decks are actually true. And then secondly, that you're getting the money that you expected, right? Like what's coming out was what you expected. And if not, you're asking questions as to why. And there's going to be ones that do better than others. And you're probably still evaluating now other people that you're going to be taking this cash flow that you're receiving if you're doing it smartly, right, you're running this through your family banking system. You're using strategic IBC, and your coach is helping you build this passive income operating system so the money's flowing through there correctly. But that money's got to go back out. Well, if that's the case, then you need to be like evaluating people. So there's nothing truly uninvolved out there. The things that are uninvolved probably don't have great results. That's probably why you're listening to this podcast, because you were in an uninvolved situation. You were with Wall Street, and Wall Street wants you as uninvolved as possible. They want you to believe their 8 to 12% return numbers they preach, which if you look at statistics, those are not true. Those are false numbers, right? Like, again, there may be time frames where that is true, but if you look at it over whole times, that's not true, right? Those numbers are fake. They're averages. Averages and real numbers are not the same numbers. Well, they want you to be uninvolved. They want you to just put your head down, just go back to work. We'll handle this for you. We'll collect the fees off of it. We'll live fantastic lives that you wish you and hope that you will live once you get to quote unquote retirement. Also, that we know that these businesses, and for it to be passive for somebody means it has to be active for another. So how good of a job are you going to be doing monitoring who is doing the active involvement? And there's some of you that are in our community right now that have way more time than you got money. And to be honest, this is an opportunity for you to gain that experience in the MOTER acronym, the Redneck Motors, we call it, to get experience, gain the relationships so that you can bring opportunities to people who do have the money. They'll gladly trade that money for your opportunity. And you might be using a tool like TriVest to start, becoming your own syndicator of deals and going out and finding the deals and raising the capital to come into it. And if that's you, good on you, right? But maybe you're just someone who just loves finding good opportunities and finding people. You have a knack, you have a relationship already built. Maybe you're part of mastermind groups. You're in the right circles. You're doing what Joey and I say when we say, hey, make sure you tell people you're an investor. You're no longer just a business owner. You're an investor first. And you start getting people coming to you, and you'll probably start to find these sort of things. Stallion, final thoughts as we wrap this up.
I think, man, if this has been enlightening to you, it's really not difficult. It's just a different way of thinking. And what I think it's based out of is if you have drawn a line in the sand and said, I have to create passive income because fill in the blank. I want more time. I want to be present with my family. I want to have the legacy that I've desired to have. I want to be a better steward of all the things that God's given me. That it forces you to say, I can no longer operate all of these opportunities. I have to find that operator. I have to find the who, not get involved in the how. And I just want to encourage you today, if you unlock that today, what a big difference it will be. I mean, you look at some of the numbers on our report, and this for the same investments, we've been able to 5, 6, 7x the cash flows in return for the same number. And that's because we unlocked this one skill set. So I hope that it helps you get to that next level as well.
Well, Tribe, another passive income report down. We gave you a different angle this time to think through this passive income report. How do you maybe find businesses that you can either buy or build, establish an operator in those businesses that can run them? Once they're running efficiently, you know how they're running, you understand how to improve them if need be. But ultimately, you start hiring yourself out of all of those roles. You become a big B business owner, as Robert Kiyosaki would say, and you start participating in a passive income. I had one of my friends today asked me this question, Stallion. I'll leave you with this. He said, how do I know if I'm a big B business owner? I said, well, it's easy. Whenever you can take a trip like Joey does to Europe, be gone forever, come back, and the business is still operating, is still growing, is still producing the income, and you didn't have to have a phone attached to your hip the whole time answering questions. That's when you know. And it's okay if you don't have that yet. What is it that you need to establish to do that? And every business that you own could become a big, big business. It can become a passive business. You don't necessarily have to go start a new one. You probably already have one. You just need some of those tools. Maybe you need a coach who can help you think through those things. Go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/free call. Jump on a call with one of our coaches. They're happy to help you think through the different strategies to help you win so you can become financially free in 2024. Have an amazing day.